I was proven even more right than I would have ever imagined, because apparently, Soros-backed Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is actually indicting my father.
That's right. Donald Trump was officially indicted recently. I love it. I'm eating this up. And you know what else I'm eating up? Their response to this. This is hilarious to watch. There are some arguments for not indicting past presidents, and I'll get to those arguments in a second, but I'll tell you what. Let's just listen to some of these people melt down at their dear leader, at their God Emperor, as they call him, getting indicted for a crime. Listen to Donald Trump Jr. just lose his mind over it. March 30th, 2023. This is the day that he was indicted.
I'm going to go make some phone calls. I'm going to look into this further.
Good idea.
I'm going to see, what exactly it means and, talk to the team. Maybe we'll have to do a special over the weekend. I just, I don't have much more to say other than the insanity of what it is. The weak-kneed response from so many Republicans, especially those that, have done a really good job of paying influencers to make them seem really MAGA.
Okay, MAGA. I've never heard it pronounced that way. I thought it was MAGA, but all right, interesting. If people were talking about how much they love Trump, they're talking about how unjust it is that he was indicted. I don't even know what he's talking about right now. Like, this makes no sense. He's saying there are influencers out there who pretended to be in favor of Donald Trump and are now, backing off of him because he's indicted. What? Who's he talking about? Look at the little lower third here. Donald Trump indicted in Manhattan DA's years-long witch hunt. Triggered is apparently the name of his podcast. This is just crazy, dude.
Seem really MAGA. Hey, I get it. Unfortunately, that's the game, and that's what it is for them. They don't really care about these things. They care about what their donors ultimately tell them, because that's where they get their money that allows them to continue and perpetuate their careers. That's why they hate Trump, because...
Dude, he's getting really specific, but he's not giving us specific names, and none of this really makes any sense. Who's he talking about? Is he talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene? She was plenty outraged about Donald Trump being indicted. Who is he talking about right now? This is weirdly specific and nonsensical. And his teeth are, I don't know, just freaky. They just freak me out. I don't know what it is about him. They just freak me out. This is a fantastic face he's making here, though, right?
Careers. That's why they hate Trump, because Trump doesn't really need them. It's why they've pulled all the stops to go after Trump for 6 years. I know a little bit about it myself because they did the same to me. And it's never going to end, folks, until we say enough is enough. Again, until we become unafraid.
Okay, so right here, he's very obviously trying to do a call to action, kind of stochastic terrorism, attack these people kind of thing. That's disturbing and concerning in its own way. But did you notice what he said a second ago? They did this to me. They tried to indict Don Jr.? I don't remember this. When did that happen? You ever noticed how when I say they, I'm kind of using the version of they that he's using, which is the deep state, the evil cabal that's out there trying to take people out or whatever. Nobody tried to indict Kari Lake. Did you notice that? Kari Lake did all the exact same things as Donald Trump, as far as claims go. She claimed that, they stole the election and all that other stuff. And she has never once lived in fear of speaking out or being indicted or anything. You know why? Because she hasn't done anything illegal. She doesn't fear going out there and talking about this stuff because she knows that's not the thing that Trump is being indicted for. He's being indicted for breaking laws. In this case, they haven't unsealed the indictment. We don't know exactly what he's being charged with, but falsifying business records is a component of it. Falsifying campaign records, misusing and misappropriating campaign funds. I heard there were 34 indictments. I don't know for sure exactly, but anyways, that's why Trump is being indicted, for breaking laws. If you don't break laws and you're filthy rich or really well known, you don't have to worry about being indicted. Now, if you're on the bottom rung of society, it's a different story. But we're not here to talk about that one. Keep listening to John Jr. complain and cry, oh, he's so mistreated.
Unafraid to speak out. They have spent probably trillions putting you in your place.
They, again, he's using the term they. See, in the English language, when we use the word they, it's used in, it's only ever supposed to be used after we have established a subject of a sentence, right? So I can say Donald Trump's family is being criticized by the news for this or that or whatever. They are attacking other people, right? I've already established who we're talking about when I say they, and it is Donald Trump's family. That's how the word they is traditionally used in the English language. Now, it's got other uses and meanings now. For example, it's used in a singular form nowadays. But without establishing the subject of a sentence before using the word they, it's called weasel words. It's where you refer to some ambiguous, secretive cabal out there that's out to get you, that's pulling strings like puppet masters, trying to take advantage of everybody around them. And if you notice, he actually did define who they is at the very beginning. Listen one more time. He does establish the subject of the sentence. He just doesn't like to link them together directly.
Things they care about what their donors ultimately tell them, because that's where they get their money that allows them to continue and perpetuate their careers.
So I guess they, in this instance, is the deep state, the people at the top that are pulling strings like puppet masters, a.k.a. the Jews. It's traditionally been used to refer to Jews. And through this entire thing, we're going to take a look at some tweets pretty soon, but through all of it, you'll notice that the people talking about it, Don Jr. and others, I'm talking Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, I have a list of tweets I want to look at in a second. I don't want to fall victim to using weasel words myself. You know, Charlie Kirk, George Santos, Candace Taylor, all those people. If you notice when we look through their tweets, the people I just mentioned specifically refer to Soros-backed DAs, Soros-backed politicians, on and on and on. Everyone is Soros-backed that they don't like. That is not so subtle dog whistle for Jews. Soros is Jewish, and he's believed to be a Jewish puppet master that's pulling strings. Anyway, listen to this second clip of Don Jr. on his podcast, Triggered. Again, March 30th, same day. Check this out.
I was proven even more right than I would have ever imagined, because apparently, Soros-backed Manhattan District Attorney Al.
There you go. Soros-backed. That's what I'm talking about. He establishes who they is right off the bat. They is Jews in his mind. Anybody who's to the left of hunting the homeless for sport is backed and controlled by Soros or Jews. That's who they is when he talks about they in a sentence without establishing the subject explicitly beforehand.
I was proven even more right than I would have ever imagined, because apparently, Soros-backed Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is actually indicting my father. So let's be clear, folks.
Did he really not think that his dad was going to be indicted? I mean, he very obviously and clearly committed multiple crimes, like tons of crimes, as president, before and after being president. I can't believe that anybody thought, I get that nobody thought that he was going to be indicted. I honestly didn't either. But can you really be surprised that they indicted him in the first place, or that they had something to indict him over? Really?
This is like communist level shit. This is stuff that would make Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, it would make them blush. It's so flagrant. It's so crazed. When even like the radical leftists of the Washington Post.
Okay, let's talk about this, because he's making basically the only point that the right has to make right now. I'll just freeze frame on this one for a second while I talk about it. Here's the reason that it's concerning that ex-presidents or ex-political whatever are ever indicted or charged with crimes on any level. Here's why it's concerning. Historically, in dictatorships or authoritarian regimes, this happens a lot in Russia. If somebody says something that's out of line, that doesn't jive well with the leader, North Korea, China, Russia, they all did this. They all currently actively do this. Belarus, too, is bad about this. If somebody steps out of line with what the active current leader wants, they are charged with sham charges. There's a sham trial to get them out of the way, charging political opponents. Just look at what happened to Alexei Navalny. He was running against Putin in an election, but of course Putin rigs the voting system so he gets the exact same amount every single time. He gets between this very narrow window of votes. Same with the Belarusian president. What's his name? Lukashenko. I didn't even look it up. I was about to look it up. I didn't hit the button yet. Lukashenko, yeah. Lukashenko does the exact same thing. History of Belarus election results. Elections in Belarus. They're complete shams. So Alexander Lukashenko gets, hang on, let's see. 1994 presidential elections, Lukashenko won by a narrow margin, 45% basically. And he only took the position because everyone else got 17, 13, 10%, that kind of thing. So he took office, and ever since then, he always gets about 80%, give or take. I mean, within a very tiny margin of error, it's always somewhere around 80%. It's so exact that it's a joke at this point. Everybody knows Lukashenko is rigging the elections to win every single one of them. And his political opponents, if they aren't puppets of his, if they aren't obeying and doing exactly what he wants them to do, then they go to jail. Alexei Navalny ran against Putin. It was the exact same thing. Putin got the exact same, within a very small window, number of votes that he always gets, same percentage roughly, and his political opponent conveniently got charged with some trumped-up crime that started out as a 10-month sentence and is now, how many years in are we? I mean, how long has Alexei Navalny been in prison? Years now, right? He's at a work camp now, I think. That is the history of dictatorships or authoritarian regimes taking out their political opponents. And that's why it's concerning when politicians are charged with crimes, but that's very obviously not what's happening here. Clear as day, it's not what's happening. You know how I know? And they know that it's not happening too. I'm talking Don Jr., Kari Lake, and all the others. They know that this isn't something to be worried about also. And I know that because Kari Lake continues to come out here and talk about how the elections are rigged and how mistreated everybody is and blah, 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 blah. They continue to talk about this stuff. You know what happens in Russia or North Korea or Belarus when somebody talks about this stuff? They get pushed out a window or they get jailed or whatever. There's a chilling effect that comes along with it. Kari Lake and all these other nutter butters would be a lot more cautious about talking about it publicly if this really was what was happening. That tells me they know exactly what this is. Donald Trump broke laws, and he's being charged for breaking those laws. Anyway, let's keep listening. So the point that he's making here, this is stuff that Pol Pot and Mao and others would blush at. Those people that he listed had a tendency to charge their political opponents with crimes, as do modern day, Russians and stuff like that. That's very obviously not what's happening here, and even Don Jr. doesn't believe that that's happening here, in my opinion.
Blush. It's so flagrant. It's so crazed when even the radical leftists of the Washington Post are out there saying, it's not really based on facts. It's not really based on the law. It's not.
Okay, I haven't heard anything about that from the Washington Post. What are they talking about? If the Washington Post said that, they're incorrect. At this moment, we don't have a lot of information about what happened or why Trump was charged or whatever. The indictment is still sealed. But we do know that he paid $130,000 to Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about their affair. And that money came out of his election fund, and the whole thing was crooked. And as a matter of fact, the lawyer that did all of this for him went to jail over it. We know all of that already. So I don't even know what he's talking about. It is most definitely based on fact. If it weren't, then his lawyer probably wouldn't have gone to jail already.
Not really based on the law. It's not really based in reality, but it's 100% based on politics. When your enemies are saying that?
What enemies are saying that? Washington Post, I'm very confident, did not say that. That sounds completely made up. Trump indictment marks a first for U.S. democracy. It may not be the last. Right. So this is what I was talking about, I'm guessing. Democracies are traditionally very hesitant about charging ex-presidents with a crime because this is a bad road generally for corrupt regimes. Now, in some case, if somebody did something wrong, they need to be charged with a crime. It's necessary for democracy to survive, for that we charge people with a crime that actually broke the law. I don't care who it is. As long as it's not politically motivated, it should be done. And this, in my opinion, is not politically motivated. Warren G. Harding was in danger of facing criminal charges in 1921 in the Teapot Dome bribery scandal, but he died in office first. Richard Nixon faced almost certain indictment after the Watergate scandal forced his resignation. Then he was pardoned by Gerald Ford. Those cases were as close as any current or former president had ever come to criminal charges in the 234 years since George Washington took office, until Trump's indictment on Thursday. The expected prosecution of Trump shatters an unwritten American political norm and brings the U.S. more in line with dozens of other nations, including democracies such as South Korea, Brazil, France, Italy, Israel, that have criminally charged, convicted, and in many cases jailed former leaders. Yeah, they absolutely should. That we should be convicting and jailing former leaders if they broke the law. In fact, I'm kind of in favor of George W. Bush being charged with war crimes. It also left U.S. historians and legal scholars puzzling over what the new legal landscape will look like for future presidents. Right, there was a precedent that was broken here. You never do this. There are reasons not to. You could call it good for democracy to not jail politicians in some cases, but not in this case. It needed to be done to show people that you can't get away with this. So, I have no idea what Don Jr. is talking about. That's not what the Washington Post article was saying at all.
Politics, when your enemies are saying that, it's got to tell you everything you need to know right now about where we are as a country.
So he seems to think the country is falling apart because his dad was indicted for committing a crime. Just a joke, dude. This guy is a complete joke. Let's just take a quick gander at some of the Republican reactions to Donald Trump being indicted for a crime. This is Charlie Kirk. The political Rubicon has been crossed. There's no going back from this. Again, he's implying that, we're going down the path of a communist nation that jails political opponents. That's just not happening. Donald Trump committed crimes and needs to be charged for them, plain and simple. Richard Nixon committed crimes also, needed to be charged for them, but he was pardoned by his guy. Warren G. Harding is absolutely terrible in every way. He should have been charged too, but that's neither here nor there. George Santos, of all people, says, I am deeply disturbed by the reports of the indictment, weaponizing the justice system to target a political rival. That's not what he's doing. The justice system isn't being weaponized by Biden or anybody else in this case. A Manhattan, local jurisdiction, Manhattan DA. This isn't federal. Biden has nothing to do with this. So Trump isn't the political opponent of anybody involved in this. A Manhattan DA indicted Trump on a crime. Right? Weaponizing the justice system to target a political rival, incorrect, is a clear danger to our country and democracy. It would be, if it were accurate. DA Alvin Bragg should focus on prosecuting crime in New York City, not executing political witch hunts. This isn't a political witch hunt. And also, New York City is the safest place I've ever lived in my life. I can't think of a time I've ever felt unsafe in New York City. I live in Manhattan, and I don't feel unsafe here at all. This place is fantastic. It's like a dream. Seriously. I've never been mugged. I've never been in fear of being mugged or any of that. It's a perfectly safe place, and he knows that. He's from New York City, George Santos says. Candace Taylor, can they indict her for being a prostitute? My hubby. She's not a prostitute. Come to find out, I looked into this. They're talking about Stormy Daniels. She was an adult film actress, and there was no exchange of money, no escort service, no nothing. It was just Donald Trump. According to her, she says she walked out of her bathroom and she felt cornered by Donald Trump, who was apparently naked when she came out of the bathroom, and she felt kind of pushed into doing stuff with him, so she ended up doing it. Now, was it consensual? Yeah, according to Stormy Daniels, but it was kind of, but there was definitely pressure applied. I think the term sex pest probably applies here for what it's worth. So could they indict her for doing that, for being a prostitute? I suppose they could if she actually were, but that's not what happened. They're just trying to vilify the woman and give Donald Trump a pass on this. Does she think this makes Trump look better? Kari Lake, they just indicted President Trump. Unfortunately for them, this will only make him, stronger, I didn't think I could possibly support him more. That's actually probably true. It is making him stronger, but you know what? It needs to happen anyways. I get it made him stronger. It made him more desirable. It needs to happen. It needs to. People need to be aware that if you break the law, there will be consequences for it. I don't care. I didn't think I could possibly support him more, but this political witch hunt only strengthens our resolve to fight. We've got your back, Mr. President. Here's Lauren Boebert, as they say. Breaking. Trump has been indicted. This is another political witch hunt targeting the people's president. No. No to all of that. He was indicted, but this is just a delusional fantasy land coming out. Here's another one. Ronnie Jackson. This was Donald Trump's doctor when he was the president and is now a congressman from Texas, I think. This is a dark day in American history. President Trump's only crime, quote unquote, was making America great again. These cowardly Democrats hate Trump and hate his voters even more. When Trump wins, these people will pay. So what we have here is somebody openly and outwardly expressing an interest in coming after somebody for political reasons. His political enemies will pay when Trump is president again. Think about that. That's deeply disturbing stuff. It's like when they talk about, I'm talking like Gene Bailey, Kenneth Copeland, and everybody on their whole TV network, the Victory Channel. It's like when those people talk about, or even Ronnie Jackson, talk about how drag queens are like indoctrinating children. They're not. Drag queen story hours is literally just theater. It's just theater. They're not even trans people. They're just putting on a show. That's it. It's not indoctrinating anybody into anything. But in retaliation, in response to the fact that there are drag queen story hours happening, they believe that they have to indoctrinate children too. So think about the chain of events here, okay? They see something they believe is evil, and they say, oh my God, that's so evil, I have to do something equally as evil. Really? That's the conclusion that you came to? You see something evil, and your response is to do something just as evil. I mean, really, listen to Gene Bailey on Kenneth Copeland's TV network on Valentine's Day 2023 explain it succinctly.
When we look back on Hitler went for the youth. The enemy always goes for the youth. We must take up arms and go for our youth, arms of the truth and of godly principles. But
he literally says the enemy always goes for the youth, so we must go for the youth. It's like this close to self-awareness, right? This close to realizing that you are the enemy. Like, insane. So again, about like their reactions and their responses and stuff, Ronnie Jackson says people are persecuting Trump politically for his political beliefs. So when he gets into office, Trump is going to persecute people for their political beliefs. Are you not seeing the disconnect here, the hypocrisy here? Is there anything knocking around up there? Here's Donald Trump's reaction or his response to being indicted. This is political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. From the time I came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your president of the United States, the radical left Democrats, the enemy of the hard-working men and women of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement. Capital letters scattered randomly throughout this whole thing. Like the word radical is capitalized. The word country is capitalized. And witch hunt is capitalized. Like, why? I suppose Make America Great Again. I can see that being capitalized because it's like a slogan, but why everything else? Anyways, you remember it just like I do. Russia, 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 the Mueller hoax, Ukraine, 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 impeachment hoax 1, impeachment hoax 2, the illegal and unconstitutional Mar-a-Lago raid, and now that, yeah, it's all completely made up, man. Donald Trump is absolutely obsessed with portraying himself as the victim when he's most definitely the victimizer. Check out this compilation of Trump supporters, big, strong guys with tears in their eyes, crying about Donald Trump being indicted. This is all from late March, so March 30th, basically, the day of or the day after his indictment.
My heart is broken.
I'm holding my head down in shame.
I had some tears in my eyes earlier.
I feel bad for the guy.
This is what it seems to be. It's a political purge.
This is burning down the rule of law.
This is going to destroy America.
This is like communist level.
This is exactly like what happened during the fall of the Roman Republic.
It's like Stalin's purges.
This is literally legal voodoo.
The Bill of Rights is gone.
They have declared, quote unquote, the Roman Civil War.
You can't trust Democrat prosecutors anymore if you're a fair citizen of the United States of this country.
You know, I find it really fascinating that it doesn't seem like, it feels like they're talking a lot about Rome, right? They've mentioned, Charlie Kirk mentioned the fall of the Roman Empire, and Madison Cawthorn, of all people, mentioned it too. I guess they don't really want to draw anyone's attention to, like, the events of the Nazi Party in World War II anymore, do they? Because they know that'll probably, you know, if people start looking into that a little bit, it might come back to bite them. Okay, let's keep listening to these nutter butters spread their nutter buttery all over everything.
Of the United States of this country.
They're after Donald Trump because they're really after you.
They have spent probably trillions putting you in your place.
We must make them pay a price.
They've wanted violence from the right from the beginning.
This is the season of them staging terror attacks and blaming it on Trump supporters.
I mean, we're in a police state. I'm not even arguing this.
They're still not doing anything with Hunter.
Think of the Hunter Biden laptop.
33,000 deleted emails. This is too great an assault on our system, much greater than anything we saw on January 6th.
They will regret.
This is all whataboutism. This is all like trying to divert attention away from Donald Trump's wrongdoing and toward somebody else's wrongdoing, even though those are completely different situations. All of it are completely different situations than we're dealing with right now. Hunter Biden isn't even in government, never was, to my knowledge, involved in U.S. government anyways. He was never involved in any government, was he? He's just a private citizen. And he's also a drug addict. You know, he's got problems. That has nothing to do with me or you or them or anybody else. Let him deal with his problems. Everyone's got problems. But they needed this to create a what about type of situation. Well, you're talking about Donald Trump. What about Hunter Biden? Who cares about Hunter Biden? We're talking about Trump right now and the illegal activities that he engaged in. Classic whataboutism.
They will regret doing this.
What you're seeing now is lawlessness, and the question is who can stop it.
And people better be careful. And that's all I'll say about that.
You catching this? People better be careful. Who's going to stop it? They're directing their audience in a very specific direction right now. Stochastic terrorism is what we're listening to. That's what's happening here. If you've never heard of stochastic terrorism, it's the idea that statistically, you don't have to instruct somebody to do something psychotic. If you have a big enough audience, say 10,000 listeners or something like that, statistically speaking, if even 1% of those 10,000 people even have the means, the gun and the car that they need to like reach this location or whatever, only 1% have the means to commit a crime that you're suggesting they commit, and only 1% of those people have the opportunity to commit the crime. You've just instilled a motive in all 10,000 of them. So all you need is 1% of 1% of 10,000 people. What is that? It's like 100 people, right? Or is that 10 people? I don't know. You just created 10 terrorists that are willing to go out and do something to correct some perceived wrong. That's the idea behind stochastic terrorism. A lone wolf event whose specifics can't be predicted, but can be guaranteed. It's going to happen when you use language like Tucker Carlson, Jesse Waters, and Josh Hawley and all the others are using right now.
Yes.
What you're seeing now is lawlessness, and the question is who can stop it.
And people better be careful. And that's all I'll say about that.
Probably not the best time to give up your AR-15, and I think most people know that.
DonaldJTrump.com. Go tonight. Give the president some money.
We're going to fight for Donald Trump, and we're just rallying behind the man today with ham sandwiches.
So, yeah, that's been the reaction from the right after Trump was indicted, as unhinged as you would expect. This is absolutely crazy, dude. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I was kind of entertained by Don Jr.'s reaction, honestly. And boy, he can sure pucker those lips, right? I don't think I've ever seen a lip puckerer as skilled as this guy right here. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments.